Looking for authentic conversations that go beneath the surface? Tune in now to the Deep Dive podcast. Visit us at www.deepdiveau.net. That's deepdiveau.net. And follow us across your favorite platforms: YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Facebook. Just search at the Deep Dive AU. Join us as we dive deep into stories of neurodivergence, lived experience, and creating a more inclusive world. The Deep Dive Podcast. Conversations that matter. Stories that connect.
This is the Deep Dive Podcast. And here is your host, Michael Coles.
Rachel Fletcher is a neurodivergent speech pathologist and private practice. Rachel Fletcher is a neurodivergent speech pathologist and private practitioner based in Melbourne. Her work focuses on supporting neurodivergent adults in ways that move beyond traditional clinic spaces, including nature-based therapy and telehealth. Drawing on both professional and lived experience, Rachel is passionate about creating supports that are flexible, sensory aware, and grounded in real-life contexts rather than rigid therapy models. Rachel Fletcher, welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, can you tell us what nature-based therapy is and how you incorporate that into your speech pathology practice?
Yeah, sure. So nature-based therapy is using the outdoors and natural environments as active therapeutic elements. So it's not just therapy done outside, it's where nature becomes like your co-regulator. And so it draws from fields like ecotherapy and therapeutic horticulture. And it could look like viewing nature or plants, and you don't have to have a big outdoor space. It could even just be from a window. And in speech therapy, I've used nature-based therapy through following like a client's interests in bird watching. And when we're outside in nature and bird watching and talking about the birds, they were able to feel regulated enough to talk about their communication challenges they were having at school.
Okay, so you mentioned biophilic design. Can you explain what this means and how it supports calm, attention, and well-being in your therapy sessions?
Yeah, so biophilic design is the practice of connecting people to nature through architecture and design. It involves integrating natural elements like plants, light, organic materials, nature-inspired patterns into built environments to support health and well-being. And so biophilia is our innate connection to the natural world. And so biophilic design is just applying that to the spaces where we live, work, and have therapy. So in therapy, this might look like reducing the sensory load, increasing natural light, or incorporating plants like I have here today to create an environment that helps to regulate attention and reduce stress. And it's been shown in healthcare settings to lower anxiety levels for both clients and clinicians, which is important for that co-regulation.
Okay, so you make the point that nature-based therapy doesn't have to take place outdoors. What are some of the ways you bring nature into a session?
Yeah, so some ways I bring nature into sessions include having plants or a view out into greenery, or using natural materials like leaves, soil, or nature-based sensory items, incorporating natural sounds like rain or bird song, using movement like walking or using it to pace ourselves during sessions, or even using nature-based metaphors like growth, cycles, seasons to explain things like fluctuating capacity and spoons and energy regulation, things like that. So it doesn't have to be complex. It can just be small intentional changes that make a meaningful difference in how your therapy can be more nature-based.
Okay, so you share a lovely example on your website, and we'll share your website at the end of the episode. So if you want to check it out, of a Lego sunflower activity. Can you walk us through how that session worked and how it connected nature-based principles with your clients' interests?
Yeah, great question again. So yeah, the activity I feel borrows from that biophilic design principles in that it gives us a view out onto nature or not being nature itself specifically. And the client I was working with enjoyed working in nature and puzzles and building. So therefore these Lego botanicals and that sunflower set in particular was great for this.
Okay, so how does creating a sensory friendly environment tie in with your nature-based approach to therapy?
Nature tends to provide calming and patterned and predictable sensory input, which is highly valuable for supporting regulation in autistic and neurodivergent individuals, such as myself also. It's often less chaotic and more rhythmic than indoor clinical environments. And regulation is important because communication follows regulation. So when someone feels comfortable and supported in their body, they're able to access and participate in communication in an authentic way to them.
Okay, so you're planning to offer sessions in a community garden in Melbourne's northern suburbs. What made a community garden setting feel like the right fit for your clients?
So I've worked in lots of different settings in the past, and I'm interested in working in a community garden setting because it offers a more relaxed and community orientated, less clinical feel. Allows communication to happen alongside more meaningful activity rather than the communication being the sole focus. For example, working side by side in the garden reduces pressure for eye contact or stereotypical or normative turn-taking conversation styles and creates more natural opportunities for communication to emerge that may be overlapping or non-verbal or non-speaking.
Okay, so how does nature-based therapy sit alongside your neurodivergent affirming values, and how do you make sure clients remain truly client-led?
Again, another great question. Nature-based approaches don't rely on social normative expectations in the same way traditional clinical environments often do. Like I was describing, that different communication styles and side-by-side styles of working, and being in nature, reduces that pressure to maintain eye contact or sit still or engage in structured turn-taking, like clinician asks question, client answers it, that kind of thing. And clients can move, dim, pause, disengage, re-engage more freely without it being seen as pathologized in perhaps some of those more clinical settings where you're getting up from a table or a chair, and support the more neurodivergent affirming and genuinely client-led approach, where communication can emerge in ways that feel more natural to the person in that natural environment.
Okay, so you mentioned therapeutic horticulture as a personal interest of yours. How does that passion influence the way you approach your speech pathology sessions?
I've always been interested in plants and gardening from a young age. My parents had a large veggie garden on their nature strip in suburban Melbourne, and I remember sharing produce with neighbours and neighbours sharing produce with us. And across my work in hospitals, schools, and community health and private practice, I noticed consistently that clients have more access to language and communication in meaningful natural environments rather than those structured clinical ones. I had clients who had difficulty finding words in the clinic, but were able to talk about their gardens, or children that I worked with appearing more regulated and communicative, playing outside in their gardens. And it made me think that there's something more about these environments. And then I was fortunate enough to work in a therapeutic horticulture program where I delivered speech therapy in nature-based settings. And so that's where I saw more clearly that this is evidence-based, and did more of my own learning into that, and have found it a valuable approach for clients in my work now.
Okay, so can you give us some examples of how natural textures and plants within a session can help a client with regulation and communication?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I like this question. Natural textures and plants can support regulation, which then supports communication. For example, touching soil or leaves can help regulate sensory systems. Repetitive actions like watering can help focus and hold attention. Being more regulated can support things like word finding, initiation, or conversational engagement. But it's very individual though. So some people enjoy getting their hands dirty in soil, while others might prefer observing or watering. But the key is, that regulation supports that access to communication.
Okay, so can you give us some examples of how natural textures and plants within a session can help a client with regulation and communication?
Yeah, I think we just did that one. Sorry, do you want me to
Oh,
go to
sorry,
the next one?
I
That's all
missed
right.
that one. My
Yeah,
fault. Sorry,
we're
I'll
not we're
cut
not
that one
live.
out.
It's
It's
all
okay.
good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, okay. At a point, you offer education and training on nature-based therapy principles. Who is that training designed for, and what kinds of settings do you tailor it to?
Yeah, thanks for the question again. So far I've delivered one-on-one and group trainings to speech pathologists mostly on how to apply nature-based therapy principles in settings like schools, community health and private practice. The training's focused on practical strategies, so adapting existing sessions and starting small rather than needing like a full outdoor setup. So I'd be open to and encourage requests from other allied health professionals and educators, therapy assistants, or anyone else in that therapeutic educational realm who would be interested to learn from my experience.
Okay, so the idea of grounding comes through strongly in how you describe your practice. How does being in or around nature help your neurodivergent clients feel grounded and ready to communicate?
Yeah, so grounding in nature works through predictable and rhythmic sensory input, like gentle breeze, not strong winds, bird song, repetitive movement like walking or watering. And this supports the nervous system to regulate and increases cognitive availability and communication access. So in practice, it can often look like clients shifting from like maybe a shutdown or overwhelm or fawning response in like a traditional clinic setting to being more engaged or spontaneous or authentic with their communication. And the decreased demands creates more authentic language that's not masked or scripted. And this isn't about trying to like get the communication out of someone using these settings, but just rather that these natural settings create the conditions where this communication can more easily occur.
Okay, so going back to the Lego Sunflower activity, how did AAC or augmented, what does the AAC stand for? I do apologize.
Yeah, no, it's a long word. Alternative and augmentative communication. So I think it's just saying like completely different from speech, or you might use a bit of speech and you might use a bit of something else.
Okay, so going back to the Lego activity, how did the AAC fit into that nature-inspired session, and what did that look like in practice?
Yeah, so I like to use AAC in real life meaningful environments that create natural opportunities for repetition and engagement, as this supports motor learning and internal motivation. So with the Lego activity, there were lots of opportunities for different communication functions like requesting pieces, describing colors, commenting on difficulty like this is hard, this is easy, expressing preferences like I like this or I had fun. And I think my client and I got focused on the building because we both like the Lego building side of it. But yeah, still I modeled the AAC and in that naturalistic way, I think it supports normalizing using AAC in more everyday context for that client, their supports and support workers who work with other clients who may use AAC too.
So, how do you think the sensory environment, when you're working with clients, whether it's that's online via telehealth or eventually in person, excuse me for a second, I'm just
All
going to
right.
repeat
I
that
was
question
thinking
after I
I
was
need a
done.
drink too. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I
No,
might
you're right.
ask that question again.
Yeah, go for it.
How do you think about the sensory environment when you're working with clients, whether that's online via telehealth or eventually in person? How does that nature play a role in shaping that space?
Yeah, yes, I'm very aware how the sensory environment affects how people can participate in sessions, especially being autistic and ADHD myself. For example, if someone is focused on maintaining eye contact or sitting in a certain way, they may not be able to process the conversation. And that's why I offer flexibility in telehealth sessions like cameras off, mics off, using the chat only, lying down, dim lighting, so people can engage in ways that work for them. And nature also naturally supports more sensory friendly environments. For example, that, like I was talking about earlier, side by side positioning instead of face to face, or natural lighting instead of the fluorescent lighting that's in a lot of clinic rooms, and the freedom to move more freely.
Okay, so a colleague left you a testimonial on your website saying they were
Mhm.
inspired to start using nature in their own therapy sessions. For clinicians who want to do the same, what are the common barriers and how does your training help them to get started?
Yeah, I think some of the common barriers that I have been asked about by other people include like thinking you need to be really good at gardening or a green thumb or have extensive knowledge of plants, or thinking that this approach is just relevant to more physical, like activities-based professions like occupational therapy or OT, or thinking you need a large outdoor space or special permissions like insurances or things to work in public parks and things. But in reality, I would hope my training would myth bust some of those for people, that not all of those are necessary, and you can start small, even like having plants indoors or a window view out onto plants or incorporating natural materials into sessions. And so, yeah, my training helps to focus on what clinicians are doing already and adapting that rather than feeling like they have to completely change their practice.
Okay, so stepping back to look at the big picture, how does nature-based therapy ultimately serve your core goal of helping clients communicate in ways that feel authentic and sustainable to them?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that. Authenticity and sustainability is really important to me. So I feel that nature-based therapy supports authenticity with less pressure to perform, like socially, dominantly expected communication styles, and is sustainable for the strategies that are embedded in that real-life environments, not just in a clinic setting, and generalize to where communication happens in real life because it might be outdoors, like in a park, on a walk, that kind of thing. It also helps to reframe therapeutic success, for example, not just focusing on communication, but on functional communication and regulation and co-regulation. It also strongly ties in with the neurodivergent affirming practice principles as it supports different communication styles rather than just the socially dominant communication styles. And nature helps shift therapy from that fixing communication to supporting connection, which supports communication.
Okay, so last question, and we like to ask this for every guest on the Deep Dive podcast. If there's one bit of advice in 30 seconds or less that you would like to give, what would that be?
Oh, gee, you put me on the spot. 30 seconds or less. I'll probably spend the most of the 30 seconds thinking about it and then come up with something on the spot at the end. I think it's about what I was saying about not having to start big or change your whole practice. I think a lot of us in the health fields, and especially neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, healthcare professionals such as myself, we can have very perfectionistic tendencies. And I think that's what gardening has taught me, that like near enough is good enough. And sometimes things grow in concrete, but they don't grow in like your perfectly made veggie bed. I don't know if it's probably been over 30 seconds, but just supporting regulation and everything supports communication. So yeah, just getting out there and giving it a go, rather than having to do it perfectly.
Okay, and on that note, Rachel Fletcher, thank you so much for being part of the Deep Dive podcast today.
Thanks. No, thanks for having me, Michael. And yeah, good to catch up with you.
To find out more, go to the website rachelfletcherspeechy.com.au or go to her Instagram, Rachel Fletcher Speechy.